Dixie Carter says drugs are not a problem in TNA.
Yeah, they're the bloody solution.
There's a Dixie quote if you'd like.
I gave up on the voice. We keep very, very close tabs on our locker room situation.
TNA president Dixie Carter told AudioWrestling.com.
We had some guys in trouble in the far past. Raven in the past. Alright, no need to do that. Most of the people we deal with don't drink any. Whatever their demons were in the past, they've kicked.
Dixie responded that because the wrestlers on TNA's roster don't fit the model of a WWE bulked up wrestler, a drug policy similar to WWE's isn't applicable to the company.
You can tell by looking at our roster that we're not necessarily about size.
Dixie said.
You don't have to be a bulked up talent to be successful on our show. We have a different philosophy as far as the type of wrestlers and the style of wrestler.
When asked about WWE's implementation of a drug policy, Dixie said,
I applaud what they're doing. I respect what they're doing. Right now, we don't have a specific drug policy in place. We haven't really had any problems, so I don't know exactly where we're going to go.
Dixie says she's talked to former WWE wrestlers who have gone through WWE's previous drug policy.
It is not a flawless system, but it is an important system.
Dixie said.
There's such pressure on these guys. I can't imagine having to live with that kind of pressure, having to compete where that's so important. I really feel for them.
When asked about building TNA and establishing a foundation for the company, Dixie said October 1st was the beginning of the company.
The first 3 years were research and development and investment money.
Dixie said.
We've been very smart with our money as we continue to make more money and build a business foundation that when the money did start coming in, that losing money would never be an issue with us.
I like the idea that she's just like, everything before Spike Davey doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Not real. All that money we lost, only like R&D.
Yeah, it's fair. I proposed that idea before, that the first 3 years of TNA were just for video packages.
Yeah, it was just for B-roll and video packages that you could put in the Spike debut, which worked pretty well, to be fair.
So I guess we're on the same wavelength as Dixie in that way regard. I like how that story goes directly into a Jeff Hardy story.
Oh, you might see that I have somewhat set the next 2 stories to directly perhaps contradict what Dixie Carter is saying.
That's storytelling, baby.
But yeah, so as you might expect, in the wake of Eddie Guerrero's death, there was a larger spotlight on the drug testing policies for these companies and whether or not there's something they can do to perhaps help wrestlers who are struggling instead of having them repeatedly fall on their back while they also have addiction problems. Those 2 things don't add up to something good, as it turns out, as we learned the hard way very, very often in professional wrestling for like 40 years. So there's pressure on these companies to WWE obviously have established their wellness policy, I think in the wake of Eddie, wasn't it? Or was it in the wake of Benoit? I think it was in the wake of Eddie. And then Dixie is like, we don't need no drug testing. Everybody's here is clean, sober, everyone's having a good time. We don't even need to look well bulked up. We don't even drink around here.
Which is hilarious.
Oh, Dixie.
I'm gonna specifically name bloody Scotty the Body though. That's a bit cold, Dixie.
Yeah, of all the people you're going to throw under the bus as well, literally Jeff Hardy's no-showing your shows every 2 weeks, but you throw Raven under the bus?
No, Jeff's a star.
Speaking of, Jeff Hardy was originally scheduled for an 8-man tag team match during the pre-show. Hardy no-showed and he was replaced with Lance Hoyt. That could be his final strike for him in TNA, unless he has a great excuse. He did not. He is fired in January. We have seen the last of Jeff Hardy. Until 2010.
Forever.
Until he comes back in 2010, but this is the end of this Jeff Hardy run because he has no-showed one time too many, and Jeff Hardy is Dunskies.
And he's about to go have the most successful run of his career.
Which is kind of wild to think about. That he crashed out of TNA, not in humiliation, because that would happen in 2011, but in very ignominious fashion. That he's done. He's very clearly been booked the last few months as a guy they want to have around just for the value of having having Jeff Hardy around, but don't want to do anything with because they cannot rely on Jeff Hardy. So there's a lot of him just kind of being on the show in relatively meaningless capacities, and rightfully so when you look at the reliability. And like, there's part of you, it's like, you put him in an 8-man tag team pre-show match, of course he's gonna fucking no-show it. But also, if you can't trust him to actually do a real pay-per-view match, what else are you gonna do with him?
Yeah, it's like, this is the opportunity where you show that you can be trusted.
Where you're willing to go out there and be a team player for a relatively low-stakes match, and then everyone's like, all right, maybe we can put him in something bigger next month. And he's like, nope, fuck it, not doing this shitty match.
But how have you felt about Jeff Hardy's first run? Sum it up in one word. Is that the word?
That's my word.
Mine is disappointment.
Yeah, because, like, he's still Jeff Hardy, but only, like, 15-20% of Jeff Hardy.
Oh, I was gonna say that's being generous.
There's glimpses every so often where it's like, oh, that's Jeff Hardy in there somewhere, but there's so much before that Jeff Hardy can get out, and there's only very fleeting glimpses of when he did get out, mostly when he was working with Abyss and freaking out at tables, because even when those matches went badly, they were extremely funny. So,
and the Ravens cage match.
Yeah, there was that silly little run, because, like, he was a very serious wrestler to start, which is to be expected. He's Jeff Hardy, you bring him in, he's your main event player, he's in a main event program with Jeff Jarrett, fine. And then he moved into, like, plunder stuff with Abyss and Raven, and that was when he was at least productively contributing to the show, as opposed to being bad.
That's the best stuff of the run.
When he was just being thrown through tables, and when tables didn't break, he drop kicked them.
That's great.
And then he came back, and he did, like, the Monsters Ball Bound for Glory is awesome, and, like, he is a big part of that and has the biggest spot in that, so you can't take that away from him either. But yeah, the average, like, week to week, there's never a point when, like, I'm watching an Impact and Jeff Hardy comes out,
and I'm like, thank God Jeff Hardy's here.
Yeah, I'm always like, oh, Jeff. Like, there's always a little bit of disappointment to even see Jeff Hardy appear on one of these shows. And yeah, we'll talk about the last few things he does. He does have a couple TV matches this month, but other than that, he is done. He is finished with TNA until he comes back in 2010. The other major item coming out of the baby was Jeff Hardy no-showing. Hardy, who has no-showed for several times in the past, including once in a push paper match against Raven back at Hard Justice, and was even dropped for a few months after that, was scheduled for an 8-man tag. The belief is Hardy is done, at least for now. TNA has historically always taken people back, though Dave notes not DDP. They're like, fuck DDP. He wouldn't put over Monty, but Hardy apparently never refused the job. He was willing to do business, but then he also didn't show up.
He was willing to do business when he was there.
Yes. With Hardy, one of the reasons he was brought back was because they wanted to have as many familiar faces as possible when they started on Spike. At this point, they are very low on rationalizations for him. Nobody knew until 2 hours before the start of the show that Hardy was no-showing. When he called to say he missed his flight, he gave no other explanation. The feeling was that Hardy was mad because he was booked in the pre-show match, but he acted as if he just didn't make his flight. And he is done.
Well, what a run.
But everyone's fine. This had nothing to do with any demons or anything. This is just some personal problems with Jeff Hardy. Dixie doesn't need a drug testing program. Nobody in the company even drinks, Liam.
I believe her. Did you not hear her impactful read 3 seconds ago?
Not that this necessarily will change the plans, but Sean Holtman didn't help his cause regarding the plans to bring him back when a few weeks ago, the DoubleTree Hotel in Orlando, the hotel that the wrestlers stay at, alerted TNA management that one of its wrestlers had passed out in a hotel room, and they had to break down the door to revive him, and the person in question was Sean Waltman. TNA officials were told Waltman had to be carried out of the room. Waltman apparently admitted he had passed out and was revived, but denied he had to be helped out of the room. There was a storyline to bring him back, and best as they can tell, that is still in the planning stages. We do only see him once. He's a random challenger for Raven in that story, but he doesn't do anything important. Probably because of this, and Dixie saying there's no problems with TNA, everything's fine.
Yeah, he passed out because he was really tired.
He's just real sleepy from all the hard work he's doing in TNA.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's your little Dixie Carter trying to downplay and do damage control post Eddie Guerrero and being directly contradicted by the two people who always directly contradict her.